symbolic, the Gentile Novi, prophet, Bilam Vayisa Mesholoi. He raised, articulated, expressed his parable. Vayoma oy mi yichya misumo kel. Who will live when the Ribono Shel Olam places what he has to in history, in time, and space. Gemara in Sanhedrin talks about this verse and says, brings a difference of opinion. One position is when there'll be the ultimate reckoning on the day of judgment, and the evildoers will be taken to task for what they have perpetrated. It'll be likened, very stark analogy, to somebody who tries to intercept a lion and a lioness that are about to mate. And God and the Jewish people coming back together will be that kind of a union. And Rabbi Yochanan says somebody who's going to try and intercept that will pay the penalty. And then it'll be clear. Another position that the utilization of certain spiritual categories, the name of God, will be prohibited, and shouldn't try and place that name in the wrong time and the wrong place by misuse of it. The simple reading of the Gemara, there's no such thing really as a simple reading of a Gemara, but to the extent that we have a cursory reading, let's say, it's talking about Jews that might misapply the use of that spiritual energy, certain place, certain time. But it does bring to mind another series of Chazalim in Pirkei de Rebbe Loza. Mechutn of mine, Rabbi Yitzchak Hacker, Shiva in Godna, wrote an interesting maimah. He made reference to a number of these Chazalim. There's a machlekes, first of all, in Rishonim on whether or not the last golus, the climax in the Messianic era, will we be just at the moment prior to that, will we be under the reign of the Western world, Edom, Rome, or will it be Yishmael? Will it be the Arabs, Islam? The Ibn Ezra says the last golus is a golus, the last exile, where we're going to be challenged and suffering from Islam. The Ramban says the last, as Chazal is mashma elsewhere, the last is golus Edom. Midrashim like that, Chazal like that. But, says the Ramban, there'll be a piece, a portion of Yishmael, of Islam, in the last golus of Rome. So either way, somehow there's going to be a confrontation, and it's already predicted long time ago, alluded to in the Psukim, predicted in the era of the Tanoim, a few thousand years back, that this is the way history is going to unfold. The Pirkei de Rebbe Loza gives a series of interpretations of the prophecies in Daniel. I'll just try and abstract some of the ideas rather than go into the text in detail. The Maharal, by the way, explains that why Chazal elsewhere seem to differ than the Pirkei de Rabbi Elazar, and they say that there are 4 Golusin, and it seems to climax with Edom, with Rome, is because they usurped their sovereignty, their power from Klal Yisrael. Whereas Yishmael bypassed that usurpation and goes straight back to Avram. And because Avram davened for Yishmael, there's a certain spiritual energy that they had, which we could make the case that expresses itself in a steadfast commitment that Islam has had to monotheism. Yet, the Pirkei de Rabbi Elazar and elsewhere interpret that Islam has a kind of double posture. They have a passion and an obsession with the connection to the divinity. But they also have no rules or principles that they will allow to limit them per odom. They're beyond the norms and the rules of how most people want to play the game of civilization, or the ruse of civilization. They won't even go through those makeshift, superficial kind of acting. Pirkei de Rabbi Elazar expresses it in a metaphoric, allegorical way that it's somehow there are Daniel's first nevuah, there are animals that represent the different exiles. Nebuchadnezzar has another dream which God discloses to Daniel, and he's able to explain it, quote it and explain it. Nebuchadnezzar sees the animals as people, which is in itself a statement. But not only people, but people that are made up of precious metals. Gold, silver, copper. Somehow that's what defines the man. But then there's a twist on the nevuah that somehow one of these animals, there's a surfacing of something that's human, a horn with a face of a man, and it says, I am in the service. It speaks gavor, gavor, pompously. It speaks with extravagance, in exaggerated terms, of what their mission is. And if that represents Islam, as we are saying, then what a beautiful fit. The Rambam, Reb Chaim Vital, Talmud of the Arizal, say that Yishmael will be the most difficult time that Klal Yisrael has ever suffered. It'll be the most painful confrontation. Prediction made a long time ago and re-echoed in Jewish history, and now being experienced and lived out. The Or Chaim HaKodesh says that this verse that I read earlier, Mi yichya mi sumo kel, who will be able to withstand, live, when the Rebbeinu Shalom places what he has to, where it has to be. Says the Yochaim HaKodesh, Klal Yisrael reviews an idea that echoes throughout Talmudic literature, that Klal Yisrael have to make the rounds of Golus, of exile, in order to retrieve certain spiritual energies, nitzitzis of Kedusha, that have to be brought back. And when Klal Yisrael is going to come to Eretz Yisrael, coming back finally to where they're supposed to be, where they have to be, the resistance to their now as a magnet, as a people, pulling in these spiritual energies to fulfill the destiny of Klal Yisrael will be the ultimate confrontation, the existential resistance of Islam to who we are and what we are and why we're here. Zohar in Parshas Va'era says that Yishmael will have a hold on Eretz Yisrael in the Messianic era. Reports a cosmic dialogue between the Sal, the whatever that is, that spiritual entity that represents Yishmael in the celestial court, and says, he asks Rebbeinu Shalom, isn't bris milah, circumcision, the ticket, the prerequisite to have a hold on Eretz Yisrael? The Rebbeinu Shalom says yes, but in the course of this dialogue, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, but it's not a bris milah kitikuno. It's not a perfect bris milah. They're missing a step, the priya, that procedure which is halachically required and halachically fulfilled. So they have a hold, but they're not there. But when can they have a hold? Says the Loshen in the Zohar, when Eretz Yisrael is reika, it's empty. What does it mean, empty? Does it mean of demographically? There are those that take it to mean when it's spiritually empty. As nature abhors a vacuum, that space is filled with that passion, that obsessive passion, that vacuum is occupied and creates this standoff, this tension. Gemara teaches that when the Targum Unklis, which comes down from Sinai, it's not just a translation, it's a commentary. When it comes down and becomes public, Eretz Yisrael shook. The land shook. And it has been understood to mean, why did the land tremble and shake? Because now the Targum was making things that we would have to expend an extraordinary effort and amount of energy to explicate, now became easier. And there'd be a little less yagir or a lot less yagir, toiling in the study of Torah. From our point of view, we're not concerned about being politically correct. So, I've told some of you, if I could pin electrodes to my daughters' heads and have them wake up tomorrow morning knowing Chumash, Nach, why not? Save a fair amount of time. I wouldn't do it for my sons or my grandsons. Why? because there's a subtle, complex interaction between the experience of the act of learning Torah is an actuality. It's not just acquisition of data of information. It's experiential. And therefore it impacts the soul, the mind, and the heart simultaneously. We have to be partners in the recreation of the idea. And when the Ponevezher Rav, Zichrono Livracha, stood in the Beit Knesset HaGodel in Tel Aviv before he founded the Ponevezher Yeshiva, and he was describing to the congregants, to the Balabatim, what he's going to do, and he said, in my Beis Medrash, Hillel and Shammai will be sitting over there, and over here will be Abaye and Rova, and here'll be the Rambam and the Ramban. And he was such a great orator, people got up to look to see if they could catch a glimpse of Abaye and Rova. But that is what happens here in every Beis Medrash. It's a time machine. We recreate the idea from within. Why is he saying what he's saying? I have to understand it. I'm not just remembering what was said. I'm not just quoting it. I'm reinventing it. I'm reliving it. And that's the difference when that's happening in Eretz Yisrael, on every street and every byway and highway in Eretz Yisrael, then Eretz Yisrael is not reika, then Eretz Yisrael is not empty. And when it's not empty, there's no hole, there's no room for Yishmael to have a nechiza. Connection between Eretz Yisrael and Limud Torah, our coming here was conditional. I have no problem defending our right to be here on terms of how the world understands the game that they're playing in the United Nations and the World Court. We were awarded the right to be here. We founded a nation. We were attacked. We won. Attacked again. We won again. And again and again. How did we win? A lot of Mesiras Nefesh, a lot of dedication and self-sacrifice. But siyata d'shmaya. We had a student here in Or Sameach from West Point one time. I asked him, how do you get to Or Sameach? He said he was hearing lectures in a course on 20th century conflicts. And not one discussion mentioned the Arab-Israel conflicts. So he was convinced it was anti-Semitism. So he challenged his professor, who was a retired general. And this Gentile professor said, I don't understand you. I only teach about wars that you can learn something from. Those were miracles. I have no truck with that. It's not my field. Was hishtadlus made? Of course. Do we have to have hakos hatov, gratitude to people who made and are making that devotional contribution? Yes. But we know the core of the uniqueness of our relationship here, we have to know that, is because this land has a soul. It's a living reality. It's not just a piece of turf arbitrarily chosen in the Middle East. There's a chemistry between us, the Jewish people, and this land. In the middle of the deprecation, the admonition, there's a posuk, there's a verse. Vashimosi ani, I will lay desolate this land before your enemies who occupy it. The Ramban and others say that's a bit of consolation that while you're sitting in exile, nobody else is going to be able to make this land work. After the 6-Day War, it was quite evident what had been in Jewish hands and what had not been in Jewish hands. It worked. There's a principle that many of the Gdolei Chassidus talk about, that every verse in the Torah must have a potentially positive interpretation. How that works with the deprecation, I'm not sure how it works, but they take on that challenge as well. But there was a verse a few weeks ago that describes the land here as a land that consumes its inhabitants. Eretz el Cheles Yoshveho. How does that have a positive spin? It's quoted in the name of Reb Tzaddik that this land will only digest the Jew. Only the Jew is digestible here, and the Jew will eternally be indigestible elsewhere. There's a certain spiritual chemistry between us and this place. But that works when we fulfill the mandate of our mission statement to make this land different than every other land, to live in rhythm with this difference. Otherwise, the land will eject us, and has. No other people has been ejected a number of times from their land and come back. It was Reb Simcha Wasserman, Zichron Levacha, Zechet Tzaddik Levacha, who said in this Beis Medrash, verses in Yirmiyahu, in Jeremiah, Mini Kalech Mebechi, don't cry, remove the tears, Rachel. Yesh Sochel Lepulosech, there's a reward for your efforts. V'shovu me'eretz Oyev, they'll return from the land of the enemy. Nu'um Hashem. And then the next verse says, Yesh tikva lachrizek, there's a hope for your future. V'shovu bonim ligvulam, they will come back as sons to their boundaries. Said Reb Simcha, the Novi Yirmiyahu was already then. This is before the destruction of the first temple, just at the time. The Novi, the prophet, was already then predicting there'll be 2 phases in coming back to the land. Phase 1, escape from anti-Semitism. V'shovu me'eretz Oyev. We're taught, we know that had they been allowed to stay, many would have, many more would have. It was reactive. Because there's a Dreyfus case, there's a secular Zionist movement. That's reactive. So then the Ribono Shel Olam will figure out the cosmic auditing, how much damage was done, how much was done that was positive. But tikva lachriseich, hope for the future, can only be when it's shavu bonim legvulam, you're coming home, because this is where, this living land that has halacha, the difference between somebody's alive and somebody's deceased is he has halachic requirements. That's why it's the din of loeg l'rosh, don't mock, no derision for the departed, don't do overt mitzvahs in his presence. This land is a living reality, it has halacha, and therefore there can be a chemistry between a people, a living people, and a living land that is unique. And so if we can fill Eretz Yisrael and of course That's the ultimate goal and the only way it's going to work. We decry, we condemn any acts of violence against innocent people, Arabs included. We defend our right to defend ourselves. But we know the power, the energy that gives Klal Yisrael its elan, its spirit, its soul, its unity, is that we're children of Yaakov Avinu. And he came down, it was like one nefesh, one soul. Does that mean people have to be cookie cutter, identically parroting everybody else's positions? No. But we're sufficiently on the same page to know what our obligations are to God and to each other. And the two are interdependent. It's unfortunate that the sense of unity that was here in Klal Yisrael these last weeks had to be reached through such a difficult and painful way. I remember during the Gulf War, there were fellas who were getting calls from their parents, come home, come home. We didn't want to take the responsibility of telling them what to do. We asked Rav Shach, Zeichet Tzedek Livrocha. Some people asked Rav Shlomo Zalman. They both said, encourage people to stay. When you're part of a tzibur, it's undermining for the morale of the tzibur of that community to leave. Somebody's mother is hysterical, she can't eat, she's pikuach nefesh. Can't stop him from going. But Rav Shach said these words: don't let such a person think that if he does leave, he won't miss something that he'll probably never be able to replace. Because when a tzibur is under threat, it achieves a certain elevation spiritually that is unique and remains integrated into that person's makeup for the rest of his life. Again, Kabbalah Satira was ki ish echod belev echod, with one heart. They had to be united. It doesn't say one mind. It says one heart, not one mindset. There can be different points of view. But every Jew is part of Klal Yisrael. Every Jew that's fulfilling mitzvahs is making some kind of a contribution to the composite of who we are and what we are. And if Eretz Yisrael is not to be reika, not to be empty, not to leave a vacuum here, we've got to fill it with more Torah and more Torah and more Torah. Do we have a certain position? The Elam HaTorah, the Torah world, of course. We're not shy, we're not bashful, we're confident, but we understand that we're in a discussion, in a debate with others that can take time. And we daven every day that the Rebbeinu Shem should give us the words, the heart, the empathy to be more effective in our communication. As the Ksava Kabbalah says on the mitzvah of Tochecha, the mitzvah to chastise somebody, correct him. First of all, the root form of the word is to submit evidence. Tochiach, to submit. Ksava Kabbalah is medayek es. Doesn't say li. Es means to put it on the table. Li means to be confrontational. When we're talking about fellow Jews, that's how we have to communicate. When we're talking about those who are threatening our existence here, we have to simultaneously do the maximum we can to support those with hakos hatov and appreciation, chizuk and tefillah. But the soul of the nation is in rooms like this. And it's only if that neshama will transcend, that soul will transcend, that we will fill the vacuum that'll give us the ultimate power to withstand the challenges, to be here, and to march together, the bias hagel b'mheira b'yameinu.